This time we will start lesson Tribals and Dikus. Introduction, their tribals, views of the British, tribal rebels. All these points we will be covering into this lesson. So now let's start. First, introduction. Indian tribals, you can see they are found in different parts of the country. Their main occupation is farming. Some of them are busy in hunting and gatherings also, whatever forest produce is there. They are also involved into various odd jobs like building of roads or construction work, working in plantation farms of tea and coffee. There are more than 500 tribal communities in India. Now, who are these tribals? Which are the various tribal communities? And what is their different relationships among in their social pattern? So let's find out about all these in continuation of the lesson. Tribals are the group of people living in different parts of India. They are involved in various activities. They have many customs, traditions, and these customs are different from those which are made by the Brahmin or the high community of India. Now, these tribal communities, here we can see, they share deep bond of kinship, do not have social divisions like casteism, and they do not have any economic differences also. Everybody is considered equal in their groups. Various tribal groups, they are busy in jhum cultivators, hunters and gatherers, animal herders, and they have a settled life also. So let's see about all these tribal groups, how they are involved into different things. Jhum cultivation, also called as shifting cultivation or slash and burn cultivation. Into this, like you can see in the photo also, the forest is trees cut down or cleared, and the remaining portion is burnt by the farmers. So when the forest land is taken away, the vegetation is burned. This way you can see clearly in the photograph, and ash is spread out, and by digging that area the seeds are spread, and after harvesting most of the natural things are taken away, and then land is left fallow for few years so that it can regain its fertility once again. But nowadays this shifting or jhum cultivation is banned by the government because it is leading to the deforestation. Tribals are hunters and gatherers also. They live by hunting animals and gathering forest produce. They saw forest as an essential for survival. So they also call themselves as the children of forest or children of land. Now let's see some tribal communities. Khonds of Odisha. They are mainly collecting forest material, go for hunting. Whatever hunting animals are there, the meat is divided equally among each member of the tribe. They also eat fruits and roots, and they cook food with the oil extracted from the seeds of sal and mahua, which are the common plants found in the forests. Then they also use the flowers and the forest products for medicinal purposes, and they sell these items in the local market. They provide kusum and palash flowers to color clothes and leather. Now, how to get the grain supply? They exchange goods in return of valuable forest products, means a type of barter system. And whatever goods are there, they buy in small quantity because their earning is very less. And in the villages they do small jobs also, like some construction work or cutting down the forest or trees. They also work as laborers in various fields. Now next is Baigas of central India. Now they were reluctant to work for others because they consider themselves people of the forest. and they relied on forest produce. So that is why they thought it is below their dignity or self-respect to work as a labor under others. So they always maintained their self-respect and worked independently. Now, trade and tribals. Trade means buying goods not produced in the locality. The traders or outsiders, they sold goods at very high rates, and because of that tribals had to borrow the money from money lenders, and the money lenders charged very high rate of interest. Because of that tribals had to lead a very miserable life because they were unable to pay. Now, animal herders. Some of the tribals, they work as animal herders and moved from one place to another with the herds of cattle or sheep according to the season wise. Now, different areas, different tribals are there. Like you can say Lambadis of Andhra and Van Gujars of Punjab, they are cattle herders. Gaddis of Kullu, they are the shepherds. Then Bakarwals of Kashmir, they reared the goats. These are the major tribal communities found in India who are animal herders. Now, settled cultivators. Most of the tribals used to roam place to place, but some of the tribals in 19th century they started living a settled life and started plowing or farming the land. Slowly, because of that, they also got the right over the land. That was mainly supported by the British because they thought if tribals will be living a settled life, it will be easier to control this community. Now, Mundas of Chota Nagpur. The land belonged to the clan or the group as a whole. Some of them became the chief or the leader of the tribe, and others used to be the followers. And now the powerful chiefs, they used to rent their land for others to cultivate it. Now here you can see, let's see your MCQ. A tribal group from Kashmir that engaged in goat rearing was, now which one is from Kashmir? The answer, let's see if you know. Bakarwals or Gaddis? The answer is Bakarwals. Yes, they used to rear the goat. Now let's see what are the views of the British related to the tribals. British did not like the tribal community because they used to move place to place. They wanted these groups to settle down, and so they supported them to become the cultivators. Now, because of this, now the tribal chief who used to have a very important role in their society, their power started declining. Before the British rule, the tribal chief enjoyed a very important role in their community. They had economic power also. But now, slowly, because of the arrival of the British, their power started declining. And now, British wanted the tribal groups to settle down. They wanted a regular source of revenue. So that's why they also introduced land settlement policies. And they started settling all the jhum cultivators, but it was not very successful, and northeastern jhum cultivators, they just wanted to continue with their traditional practices. And because of this shifting cultivation, the forest areas were given to the British, and those communities were allowed to live near the forest areas. Now, the policy of land settlement. The British officers, they measured the land, defined the rights of each individual to that land, fixed the revenue, and some peasants they declared as the landowners and others were made the tenants. Now, just to extend their complete control over the forest, they declared some forest as the reserved forest or the property of the government. And in these reserved forests, the tribal people were not allowed to move freely, practice jhum cultivation, collect fruits, or hunt animals. That is why the tribals, they started losing their source of income, their source of livelihood, and they were forced to move to other areas and work as laborers for others. Now, the British also needed the laborers for cutting the trees for railway sleepers, transporting the logs, and all that one. Now, for that, what was the solution? The British government gave Jhum cultivators a small patch of land in the forest. They allowed them to cultivate the land. The villagers have to provide labor to the forest department, and this way the government also got a cheap labor regularly, as well as tribals also got a place or the land to cultivate for themselves. Now let's see the reactions of tribal groups towards the British policies. Various revolts were there, like revolt of Songram Sangama in 1906 in Assam, and many other forest satyagrahas were there during the 1930s in central province part of country. Now, traders and the problems. Traders and moneylenders, they wanted to take the help of the tribals to buy forest produce. So they started giving them cash loans at higher interest rates and make them work for wages. Tribals initially did not understand and they took the loans, but slowly it became very difficult for them. Like for example, you can see Indian silk was in great demand in European markets since 18th century. So East India Company officials, they encouraged silk cultivation. Now for that, Santhals of Hazaribagh, they reared cocoons. Middlemen, they made huge profit by the cocoons because they purchased it at a very low rate, like 3 to 4 rupees for 1,000, and sold it very high rates. So tribal groups, they saw the market and traders as their main enemies, and that only led to the various problems later on. In late 19th century, tea plantations started coming up, mining became important industry, so tribals were recruited through contractors. The contractors paid them very less money and they prevented them from returning home or move freely. Means tribals were forced to work as bonded laborers. Now let's see some tribal rebels. The tribals rebelled against all the changes in the laws or land policies, the restrictions on their practices, the new taxes which were introduced by the British, and exploitation of them by traders and money lenders. So some of the famous ones, revolts, you can see, like the famous tribal revolts were 1831 to 32 rebellion of Coals, then 1855 rising of Santhals, 1906 revolt of Songram Sangama, 1910 Bastar rebellion, and 1930 other forest satyagrahas. So these are the various revolts done by the tribals, and in 1940 Warli revolt of Maharashtra. So the common revolts against the moneylenders and the British policies. Now let's see about Birsa Munda, a great tribal hero. He was born in mid 1870s and he grew up around the forest of Bonda in Bihar and Chhattisgarh areas. He heard the tales of uprising and he saw how their community people are revolting against the government policies. Birsa Munda had studied in a local missionary school and listened to the sermons of missionaries. He also worked with some prominent Vaishnava preachers, and that is how he started valuing the importance of purity and unity. Now, Birsa Munda wanted to bring the golden age of the Munda tribe once again. That is why he aimed at reforming tribal society. He urged or told the Mundas to bring back that golden past, but in 1895, when he was making them to follow and bring back their glorious past, He wanted people to work on their land, settle down, cultivate their field, but British officers did not like it and they considered Birsa as their greatest enemy. So the land policies of British were destroying their traditional land system. Hindu landlords and moneylenders were taking over their land, and missionaries were also criticizing their traditional culture. In 1895, Birsa was arrested by the British. He was convicted for 2 years imprisonment, but later on he was released and again he started touring the villages to make them united against the British policies and started using traditional symbols and languages, like he told people to destroy the Ravana and establish a kingdom under his leadership. He also used the white flag as a symbol of Birsa Raj. But Birsa died in 1900 because of cholera. Because of this, maybe the Munda rebellion was not very successful, but it forced the colonial government to introduce some laws. Land of the tribals could not be easily taken over by the Dikus or the outsiders. It also showed that tribal people had the capacity to protest against injustice and they can also express their anger against colonial rule. So this way we have seen into this lesson that how tribal communities, they consider themselves the children of land. British tried to control them in every way, but they opposed it and always tried to bring back their own golden time and work independently as farmers, hunters, or gatherers. That's all into this lesson. Next time we'll continue with another one. I hope you all must